Welcome back to Boy Party's 25 for 25. I'm counting down my 25 favorite films of the last 25 years, 2000 to 2025. You may have heard the first edition where I discussed Martin Scorsese's Hugo, and today I'm back to talk about the 24th best film, in my opinion, of the last quarter of a century, David Dobkin's 2014 The Judge. Yes, this is probably going to be the most controversial choice on this list. I'd be very surprised if anything came close to this in terms of low rating, general poor consensus on this film compared to my personal opinion of it. But The Judge is a film that is widely derided. People mock this film. It's seen as something of a normie favorite. It does well in the Netflix charts, but is not really liked by cinephiles. Currently has an average of 3.4 on Letterboxd, which I actually don't think is that bad, but probably will end up ranking quite low in terms of the films I discuss on this list. But The Judge is one of my favorite films of the last 25 years, no doubt about it. I did sub this in at the last second when I was making my top 25 list, because I made a decision that films that had already been discussed on Boy Party would not be interesting to talk about again on the 25 for 25. I had Almost Famous and I had Marriage Story just hovering at the bottom of the list, and I took them out and I swapped in two other films, one of which is The Judge. This film was released in the autumn of 2014. It was directed by David Dobkin, based on a script by Bill Dubuque and Nick Schenk. I think Schenk probably did most of the work there. Produced by David Dobkin, Robert Downey Jr.'s wife, Susan Downey, and a number of others. It's a Warner Brothers film. It was released right around the same time as another Warner Brothers film with a very similar aesthetic, very similar marketing, that also features Dax Shepard in a small role, and that film is Sean Levy's This Is Where I Leave You. Now, I think The Judge is much better than This Is Where I Leave You, but they are very similar films. This Is Where I Leave You similarly follows a man who goes home from the big city to visit his small town. There's a funeral element. He has to reconnect with his family. Jason Bateman is the star of that film. It's shot very similarly. There's father-son stuff in it. In that case, it's with Sam Shepard. In this, it's with Robert Duvall. And Dax Shepard shows up in both films. And they're very similar. And they came out a few weeks apart. And I think there's a little bit of confusion in general about which film is which. But I like them both, but I do prefer The Judge. The Judge, I think, is phenomenal. So this movie is corny. It's cliched. It's very heavy-handed. It's also arguably kind of right-wing. It has definitely got a Republican slant to it. It's written by Nick Schenk, who's responsible for some of Clint Eastwood's movies from the last 15 years. And it basically has all the auspices of a Clint Eastwood directed film. It looks like a Clint Eastwood movie. Dobkin has done a really good impression of Eastwood's directing style. I would say something that Bradley Cooper has also done in his two films so far as a director. I think these guys have learned from Eastwood how to put together this very glossy type of studio drama. And I think in both Cooper and Dobkin's cases, they've bettered the man himself. I don't know. Nick Schenk wrote Gran Torino. He wrote The Mule. He wrote Cry Macho. The script was then sort of partially rewritten by Bill Dubuque. This is the man behind the TV show Ozark. And he's also written the two films, The Accountant movies, The Accountant and The Accountant 2. As it so happens, I saw The Accountant 2 last night, enjoyed it quite a bit, although it is no The Judge. But as you can tell from these men's credits, they operate in a realm of filmmaking that you could describe as American conservative, Republican-coded. Films about men fighting against a system that wants to suppress them, white men. And films with a little bit of one eye on the government and the legal system as a potential enemy. It's interesting. I don't really engage with The Judge on that level, though. I love it because it's a big, long, silly, dense OTT character drama released by a Hollywood studio at a point in my life where I was old enough to appreciate it when it came out. My appreciation of it has only grown in the last 11 years. I own this film on Blu-ray. I've watched it a number of times. I've made my parents watch it with me a number of times. It's been on TV a few times when I've been visiting my parents. Anytime I throw it on, they are cynical about it, but they're willing to sit through and finish it with me because it has an amazing Robert Duvall performance. I really think, even if you think this film is slop, which many people do, Duvall is incredible in this. And it's an incredible performance from a man of his age with a lot of nuance going on. But I associate this film with spontaneously flicking over the TV channels and finding it's on. I associate it with sort of perversely throwing on the Blu-ray to piss off my parents. I associate it with going home to visit my parents in rural small towns from the big city and the relationship between parents and children that exists in that gray area. And I think this film captures it really well, although on a much more melodramatic, as I said, OTT level. But it's a film I really like, and I'll talk you through it now and explain some of the things I love about it. It starts with Robert Downey Jr. is introduced. He plays a lawyer called Hank Palmer, who is in Chicago, and he's a Robert Downey Jr. type. He's a really acerbic guy. He's smart-ass, sarcastic, everything we want for Robert Downey Jr. And this is the one Robert Downey Jr. performance this side of Marvel where he has actually gotten to play a real human being, and it has been really, really fun to watch. I would say his performance in Oppenheimer is good. I'm glad he won the Oscar, but that's not a real person. That's a caricature of, this big, bold villain from the World War II narrative. I think this guy is an actual character. We meet him when he is in a bathroom in the courthouse. He runs into another star of Oppenheimer, David Krumholtz, and he starts urinating on him.
You're not getting away with this.
Palmer!
You asshole.
Oops.
Hey! Stop.
Did that just happen?
You meant to do that.
No, you startled me.
Yeah, you meant to do that.
No, I don't think I did.
This David Krumholtz character is obviously his main rival in the lawyer space. But they go into a trial together, and Robert Downey Jr. gets a call, and he finds out that his mother has died. And he goes up to the judge and he asks for the trial to be postponed. And David Krumholtz thinks he's lying, but no, his mother has in fact died. Then we see him going home to his small town, and he's in a town called Carlinville, Indiana. And this is when the film's composer, Thomas Newman, just goes absolutely ham with the score. I have a real thing for Thomas Newman scores. I think his score for American Beauty is commonly accepted as being really incredible. I also adore his music for a lot of the Pixar movies, A Series of Unfortunate Events, Revolutionary Road, the Sam Mendes Bond movies. He's done some incredible work, and his score for The Judge is just superb. And when Downey drives home to his town, we get to hear Tommy Nunes just absolutely going nuts. The score is obviously a huge reason of why I like this film so much, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that makes perfect sense. He arrives home and he meets his two brothers, Vincent D'Onofrio and Jeremy Strong. This is pre-Succession Jeremy Strong. This would be one of the first things I ever saw him in. He's in The Big Short about a year after this, and Molly's Game a year after that. And Vincent D'Onofrio is a bit of a schlub. He owns a tire shop. He obviously has an inferiority complex with Downey because Downey's a big shot lawyer, and he's kind of, stayed local, running a local business. And then Jeremy Strong is playing a character with an intellectual disability. And I would have absolutely no problem with anyone who decides to write the movie off on the grounds of this performance and of the stereotype that it is perpetuating. It is a Rain Man, I Am Sam type role. But it works for me. I buy into this sentimentality around it. And the character has this filmmaking thing going on. He's got a Super 8 camera and he's capturing footage of the family and he's watching it back on his film projector. And I find it really moving the way that he engages with the world through the camera. I don't know. It's so hokey, but it works for me. So what can I say? And Jeremy Strong meets Downey again and talks to him about the fact that the mother has died.
Her heart just kind of turned off. I found her by the hydrangeas.
Good job.
Oh, this is St. Francis I picked. Because he was her favorite. Friend to the birds, like Mom. Oh, gotta remember to put food out for them, especially in the winter.
The next thing Downey does is he goes to the courtroom to see his father. And this is Robert Duvall, and he's Judge Joseph Palmer. And he is a real big personality of a judge. And he has very strong ideology. And he has, he really, really believes in the law. And we witness him putting a local white trash scumbag in his place. which is the first evidence we see of his, strong arm attitude to the law.
That your new truck up front?
Which one? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an affirmation.
Yeah. It's not an affirmation a man uses in court.
Now, Downey and his father have a complex relationship because Downey was in a car crash that injured Vincent D'Onofrio when they were teenagers. And his own father put him in jail because he wanted to teach him a lesson. And they've obviously had a real issue throughout their entire lives. But as we've seen, Downey has gone into the legal profession. He's obviously tried to follow in his father's footsteps to some extent. And it's these men's relationship that we get to explore throughout the film. But anyway, Downey then goes to the local diner where he meets his ex-girlfriend, played by Vera Farmiga, doing a very good impression of Patricia Arquette. This is a role that Patricia Arquette would probably be better in, but no shade to Vera Farmiga, who's very good. And her and Downey start flirting again.
Yeah, you kept your hair. Like sawing sawdust, all that worry for nothing.
And then Downey meets her daughter, played by Leighton Meester. And Downey and the daughter actually get romantically involved. Then there's a brief window of the film where Downey believes that this is in fact his daughter. And that's a bit freaky. But ultimately it turns out it's actually his niece. It's D'Onofrio's daughter. So not great either. This movie does contain mild incest, I must warn you. He has a daughter and he has an ex-wife back in Chicago. And his daughter comes to visit. And there's a scene where he has to basically... Because Robert Duvall, the father, I should say, has secretly been battling cancer, terminal cancer, is getting chemotherapy and is starting to become a little bit kind of incontinent. I mean, this guy's in his 80s. There's a scene where he shits himself and Robert Downey has to go in and kind of wash him off in the shower. And the daughter comes to the door and starts knocking and wants to hang out with them. And the way that the men actually navigate this interaction with the daughter is hilarious. I find the scene really funny. And like all barriers of awkwardness between the father and son are kind of broken down in trying to cover up what they're doing for the daughter's sake.
What are you doing?
What? Fixing the sink.
We're fixing the sink. It leaks.
Can I help?
She'll slip. It's too much water.
No, there's water all over the floor. All right, go do something. Grandpa will be down in a minute.
Yeah.
But the film has this repeated use of Bon Iver's song Holocene, which I really like. And it's featured once in the middle of the film when Jeremy Strong is showing Downey some old Super 8 footage of the family. And then it's used again at the end of the film.
You know I have to go, right?
The actual narrative of the film hinges on the fact that Duvall's character has killed someone with his car, and he doesn't remember doing it. And Downey realizes that he's got issues with his memory. But if he draws attention to these issues with his memory, then a lot of his old, judicial decisions are going to be thrown out because the court will suddenly be in doubt of his mental ability for the past number of years. So Downey feels like he has to help his father to deal with this well. Also, the man that he's killed with his car is a domestic abuser. He's violent. He's tried to shoot someone before. So there's the film has this, as I've said, slightly Republican instinct of, he deserved it and he doesn't, the trial, he doesn't need justice. So Duvall first employs Dax Shepard, podcaster extraordinaire, the armchair expert himself, as his representative in the court. And Dax Shepard is pretty bad and he pukes everywhere.
You're my guy.
Your Honor, I'm going to fight like a badger for you. You can count on that.
I actually really like Dax Shepard in this movie. I'm a big fan of his as an actor from the show Parenthood, which he's great on. I don't like him as much as a podcaster, but he's a pretty good actor when he's given the right role. But anyway, he is a really shitty lawyer, so Duvall has to settle for his own son, Robert Downey, representing him as his counsel. And this is when things start to go up in his favor. But unfortunately, Billy Bob Thornton shows up as the rival lawyer on the other side, and he is quite a force to be reckoned with. And Downey and Thornton get to go at it, which is something about this movie that I really love.
As a matter of fact, there are no brake marks at all, are there?
No, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
In the third act, we have this fantastic scene when there is a giant, I don't know, hurricane going on, just an enormous, crazy, dramatic storm, something really biblical. And Downey and Duvall are in the house, and there's wind outside, and it's really dark, and stuff's blowing everywhere, and their hair's blowing everywhere, and they're screaming at each other, arguing, and they get all of their issues out on the table, and it is so unsubtle, and I absolutely love it.
You sent me to fucking Vanderburg!
No, you put yourself there.
Did I?
Yes.
The prosecutor recommended community service. That was your call!
No, it wouldn't have helped you.
I didn't need help, I needed you!
The movie ends with the right thing being done. Duvall gets sent to jail, and Downey has kind of made peace with his being from the hometown and his connections to his family and his community here, and he celebrates this before going to the courthouse and sitting in his father's chair while the Bon Iver song plays, because he accepts that he is the father of the judge and realistically is probably the next judge in waiting. And then the film ends, and we cut to credits, and we get to hear Willie Nelson singing a cover of The Scientist by Coldplay.
Come up to meet you, tell you I'm sorry, don't know how lovely you are.
Again, so funny. I just love everything about this. I think it's absolutely delightful. It's so watchable. It's operating in this 1990s legal drama vein, but with this 2010s studio sheen that me, as someone who was 16 maybe when this movie came out, 16 or 17, I really respond to it. Like, I just find this to be the most rewatchable type of movie that exists, and I would rewatch this once a week, no problem. Apparently, Jack Nicholson was the first choice for the role of the judge, but he didn't want to do it, obviously. He's retired at this point, so they give it to Duvall. I think we're better off. I think Duvall's incredible. He gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars, rightly so, in one of the most stacked Oscar categories ever, I think. This is really one where I find it hard to choose a winner. You've got the winner, J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, incredible performance. You've got Ethan Hawke in Boyhood, Edward Norton in Birdman, which is easily the best part of that movie. He's great in Birdman. Mark Ruffalo in Foxcatcher, probably the weakest of these five, but still a great actor. Pretty good movie. And then Duvall in The Judge, and it's like, who do you even give that Oscar to? You do give it to J.K. Simmons. I agree. He is the rightful winner. But tough choice. I mean, Duvall, Norton, and Hawke, those are three really great performances. And that's why I love The Judge so much. I am not sure that you're all going to agree with me on this, but I think it's one of the best movies of the past 25 years. I hope I've made my case somewhat well, but ultimately, I'm just a bit of a sicko, and this movie appeals to a lot of my favorite tendencies in movies. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Boy Party 25 for 25. I'll be back very soon with the 23rd best film of the last 25 years. Meanwhile, you can check out the long shot episode of Boy Party released last Tuesday, and tomorrow we'll be releasing our Thunderbolts episode, talking about Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan in the new Marvel blockbuster. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.